No, but it's not the point. It's not the point. We have this way where everything becomes I think it has to do with a certain.
He surprised us a lot.
I believe 100%. I believe in miracles. Okay, I believe that nothing. People could live for 250 years. There's nothing. 100%. No, I'm serious. But we have to have a certain. There's like a cost-effective and cost-benefit analysis of tefillah also, and we see this in Chazal. There's such a thing called the tefillah shav. Is it impossible? No, we believe in Nisim. I personally believe in Nisim. In other words, we had said this whole drusha. I don't know what teva means and all these things. Everything. Could a guy live to 120? Why not? There's nothing supernatural about living to 110. Why people do it all the time? Well, not all the time. It's rare, but it happens.
There are people 100.
Right? But if you have only a certain amount of tefillahs, okay, I don't know. This is a funny way of saying it, but to make this rash that gets made like it's a minig, it's Litvish minig mostly. Like every time the gudel is like, when he starts, mamish the dawn, when he's a good, there's such an halacha like goises. He was definitely b'matz b'madraigas goises. Yeah, sometimes there's such an halacha of goises. Man, as those are gedder and halacha, you're not allowed to touch him, whatever. We're not making that halacha either. But aside now, maybe if the suffix chayish whatever, okay, now and not maybe we should be making, but like at some point you say, okay, whatever God does, maybe if God wants to make a miracle, make a miracle. It's not your job to daven for miracles. It's like frenzy of like in the last seconds. No, now you say Shema Yisrael, wherever it goes. It's just the wrong time to daven. You don't daven when that. Yeah, there's no, that's true. This also depends what you're davening for. Again, if someone has a terminal illness, most likely they will die. Okay, so you're not daven. Yeah, like I said, you should still daven this. There was to the Rebbe that they daven that he should die faster, right? Such a ram over there. There's such a thing to daven that someone should die faster with less pain, right? Of course, very controversial if you say it, but it's such a halacha. It's not crazy. You don't know what Rebbe they were, of course. Of course, Amsa the Rebbe, she wanted him to die because she said you're prolonging his suffering by davening. It's assuming that tefillahs do work. You understand? Not saying that tefillahs don't work. They work, and Nebuch, you're holding a dad. He wants to die already. Let him die. Yeah. There's such a thing. There's such a makah. But we don't have to get to that. Like that's already just like very basic. It means that you basically your tefillah is totally disconnected from reality. What are you asking for? What is the if a guy has 30 years old? There's a connection, something connected with now. The guy's 99. There's no way he's gonna live for. He's not gonna become back healthy. Okay, he's like, most of the time, every nissim can happen, but it's not our job. But it's not our job to make nissim happen. No, it's not the point. Even if I believe nissim could happen, but it's not our job to make nissim happen. It's our job to daven for the normal things. For the not normal things, there's halacha. It's kulat tefillas shav. It's a mishnah that says he should not do such tefillas. What is the pshat with this mishnah? Nah. Yeah, maybe sometimes, but that's not. There's different ways. There's different. No, it's because God wanted. Maybe it could be a lot of different things. No, like you're saying, the point is that we have this like where there's like this is gonna be the emergency tefillah. Like at some point we're against the whole. I think we're against the whole concept of reality. We never accepted that people actually die sometimes. It was always a tragedy. No, what's the tragedy? It was always a plan that the Slovakian will die. It was always the plan. Let's cut to the mission. Why that? I think this whole Buddha Netzach is silly. I don't think we should stop saying it. It also doesn't mean that they're pussy. It's only a medrash. But anyways, I remember the pussy. I remember that it wasn't the pshat. I remember what is the pshat. It's definitely not this. But there is such a matter. It is Chazal. Chazal do understand.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah, theoretically, no tachlis. We don't live in the world where Misa is not a good thing. We live in the world that we say is a good thing. We're all planning to die. We're all going to die. No, theology, ich weiß, der Mann hat das sein, der Mann hat das sein, der Machloikes, der Rambam, der Rabban, just like anything else. Yeah, of course.
Who else what? Rambam holds a good thing.
Yeah.
No, Rambam is very against it.
Yeah, of course. Then I'm all the good thing. You should. If you're a real tzaddik, you should be looking forward to dying. That's Plato, man. That's Plato Mefirish. That's Plato Mefirish.
Is it part?
This is Nashika. The Rambam talks in the end about this.
Is it part of this? That secular people are like Mamish, like over. Is it because they don't believe it? That's part of this thing that private Yidden don't take so seriously.
I don't know. I don't think.
People are like No, because this is it.
I don't think there's such a correlation. There is something like this, but in some I couldn't go. There's no such thing as secular people. Everyone believes in the afterlife. Most everyone. Ja, die Chapsters, Menschen sind stupid. Menschen sind, whatever. I think there's very few people that are principled. That's a very natural thing. Besides America is nicht wie ist der Ding mit secular people, nicht Amerika. Everyone talks about is in a better place now. Ganz normal. Noch einmal, the Zeitungen, of course, most people that write Zeitungen, if you ask them, they don't believe in this, but Lamas, they do. No, I don't think it's true. The other way around, I think that we don't believe enough in. I don't know about enough. We actually have this like. I don't know. There's a very interesting shit because there's no good way to understand this. We actually, but the kids at Haraidim do not accept death. It's not part of our image of view of the world. Even death in the good way, right? No, the gift starb. We don't believe in that. We don't accept it. I don't think so. We're in denial. We're in the shit of denial. Shit of denial. If I was the shit of denial, well, there is, in other words, is death a part of your life? Is death a part of your view of reality? Could be part. It's part of. It can be. That's no. Of course, it's not scheduled.
I know, but nobody thinks about it.
There's a human problem. All of these things are human problems, but no. But in the medieval times, death was part of life.
What?
Because you had to make some chorus down the block.
Part of it. It's part of it. It's part of it. It's part of it. People. It's part of it. It's part of it. It's part of it. It's part of it. That's a very modern thing, though. That's not a traditional. It's just the opposite. I think that if you look in Sfurim, even traditionally, death is part of life. Traditionally, like this, there's so many different. I'm so unclear because this is not what I was supposed to talk about. But I think that should be part of life. And what you were saying is very important because you're saying, so we bankrupted the Magidim that talked about death and the Ganai, the Gehenna, and all these things. They stopped working, so therefore we have to have this all, it's called. And someone said, what do most Americans believe in? Moralistic therapeutic deism. Deism. It's to a God. Therapeutic, that's the main. To a God, his basic job is to be our therapist. And he's not really involved as like kind of the that's what most Americans believe and most Haraidim believe in a very strong way. The God of Kipling, the God of Kapi Bokerings, the God of self-help.
No, that's so very new.
The God of the God of self-esteem. That's what I saw. Yeah, he's also 100 years old. He's very old.
99. No, 99. I think they're all three when I.
Very old. Very old. Whatever, but the God of, you understand, the God of making us feel better about things, about ourselves.
Those are for Ami readers.
But now,
I think the average guy in Williamsburg or the average.
Of course, but Kalv Choyme. No, make Kalv Stach me.
Make it feel good, forget, The guy to Gehenna just to make the Gehenna so strong.
We don't really believe in the Gehenna. We don't really believe in the Gehenna. Besides for that, that's kind of true. Jeden don't go to Gehenna. Go ahead, Hitler got to Gehenna. But that's not the point. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to believe in the Gehenna in the NFL. The Gehenna in this world definitely does exist, and we don't believe in that one. Gehenna, people die. I forgot about the Gehenna. So when you die, you right away go to Gehenna. Let's assume, the Rambam doesn't think so, and nobody the Ramban doesn't think so. But yeah, there's such the Medrushim generally think that only Goyim are in Gehenna. There's a few Eden in Gehenna, like Karsten and Oshchem Berlus. Gehenna, if I Eden, Gehenna is okay. Yeah, of course. But without talking about this.
The overall it's geworden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
everybody's get taken out. Right. Yeah. There's also like also most people do tshiva. There's a chazaka people do tshiva. Aloha the chazaka that you do tshiva before you die. Right? Very hard. You have to you have to do operation.
Garbage bag. Throwing it out on Shabbos, but I don't know what he did.
You have to do an operation.
What you do? Tell me 3 Averis. This is one of the stuff.
Okay. You know what I mean? Beside it. No, but I'm not talking about this. So what I mean, what I wanted to get at is that therefore, because so what happened was we at least have this image like this. It's a very general it can explain a lot of things. So religion stopped describing the world as it is. You know, it doesn't describe the world. There's so many ways of showing this. It doesn't connect to the world, to the real world. Therefore, it's like either it's a Pshita, that's why we got the Pshita ideas. Either it's like it's about making you feel better. It's about internalizing things. So I'm very against, for example, Martin Buber's idea. Martin Buber said that, and a lot of Chassidim took it to be as a self-description, maybe even the Rayatz. I think it's very wrong. Because Martin Buber said, what did Baal Shem Tov do? First, Kabbalah. I mean, there's actually such a Baal Shem Tov al Torah that says this, but I think it doesn't mean that. Kabbalah is about Olam Yisrael Yoyin King. Baal Shem Tov sagt das wegen dich. So he called it psychologization of Kabbalah. I mean, that's the worst thing to happen to the world. You're basically saying that it's all fake. There's all kind of feelings and Sachen. That's not what Baal Shem Tov says. That's not even true. It's just that basically there's no objective reality. The definition of reality is what exists outside your mind. That's kind of a very ancient definition of reality, but that's still the definition. And if you're coming, and why is it a good thing to internalize religion in that way? Why is it a good thing to psychologize, say Kabbalah? Who cares about that? I feel that's this crazy level of narcissism that it's hard to even imagine making sense, unless you're really not Napikiris. Why would you care more about what's in your heart than what's in the Olam Yisrael Yoyin? I care much about Olam Yisrael. They actually exist. My heart, it's not even. Oh, so now this standard Kabbalah. We don't need to see this for the standard Kabbalah says that you're connected to it and so on. That's nothing to do with Chassidus. That's very old. Or even deeper than pulling strings, whatever, like that. All kinds of different structures, how to explain it. But that's standard Kabbalah. That's not nothing. That's right. That's not Baal Shem Tov. Whatever, yeah, however you explain it. He's saying like strings. It's not really strings. There's some kind of causation. There's no strings, right? Some kind of causation, right? There's a backwards causation. Yeah. Yeah. Right. No, there's more than that. That's only one. That's two. But the part is that's nothing Baal Shem Tov. What did people think? Like some people, like the Rosh Hashanah says, okay, that's a kind of little slightly different statement. But what do you mean? You have to be such a mishiganit and not care how many maluchim there are. Why wouldn't you care? It sounds it's actually about the reality. So do scientists care about how many atoms there are? That's what Chachma is. Chachma is about knowing what exists in the world, not about what exists in you. Okay, maybe there's such a Chachma. There's other says you should know yourself. Yeah, there's also a Chachma. There's such a Chachma. I mean, that's the reality. We have to conform to reality. The reality doesn't have to conform to us.
No. What's more important to you?
What's in the Gaia?
No, it's more important to you to find a book.
That's like, it's not the Gaia to me anything. The only thing that's the Gaia to me is if my coffee was sweet. That's a cat. A cat only cares about what's present to him. The whole idea of being a bardas, being a udam, is that's actually what it means to be a tzalmanim. Is the guy that actually it doesn't matter to me. What do you mean matters?
You care about more to make sure
I care about how the world works. That's not true. Only in the most extreme babyish sense. No. What do you mean? The thing that the Rambam says. The Rambam says you wake on this is quoting Aristotle. You wake up any guy in the middle of the night, you ask him, do you want to know how the world started?
Today you ask somebody, he doesn't care about any of that.
No, but you know where the shielding thing is? I think people do care. People do care. You heard? People do care. But religious people are made to stop caring because I don't think. What do you mean? Astrophysics sells millions of books. Carl Sagan. That's what it says in the Rambam. If I did something, you wake up to any guy, you ask him, do you want to know how many maluchim there are? Something like that, and he says, of course. But then you tell him. Do you want to wait? It takes 2 weeks to learn. The guy stick schlaf. That's the Rambam story. But this is Aristotle.
People tell him have no interest at all.
That's not true. That's but this is basic Aristotle. All humans want to know. It's still true. What do you mean? What is the news selling? Let me prove you. No, Aristotle proves it like this. Aristotle says everyone likes to see nice things. Beginning of Metaphysics, it's a beautiful book. Everyone likes to see nice things. Everyone watches movies. Why do they watch movies? What's the tonic of seeing a movie? It's knowledge, yeah? Knowledge of the Myonis. What's his knowledge? He says that people enjoy the sense of sight more than any other sense. That's what he says. Technically, all senses are about certain kinds of knowledge. But what do you mean? Do you watch the news every day? Not you. What is news about? When was the last time the news was relevant to you? When was the last time? It's almost never relevant. That's why I'm against it.
Yeah,
But that's because I've just prioritized knowing other things. But I still think that it's part of knowledge. The news is a huge business, and the only thing it sells is knowledge. What is it? Why is news important? People, I'm just proving that it's not true that people naturally. For some reason, no, Elastic News is repackaged and called history, and it's still interesting. It's still sad. Carl Sagan makes a television show. He's dead. It sells millions of books by telling people how the universe started. What are you talking about? Yuval Noah Harari wrote the most popular book in the last 10 years, and all it is Master Bereshis. Well, of course, it's his version of it, but that's what it is. It's how the world happened, right? What is it about? Sapiens. It was on the New York Times bestseller list like 100 weeks. Yeah, Sapiens is like one of the most successful books. Don't read it. It's because it's this
Very long. He's one of the biggest.
You're about my separation? I mean, his own my separation.
It sold millions. I'm not saying. Yeah, that's not so successful. I'm not. That's not. No, but it's not the point. That's not the point. I'm not getting into if his story is the true story or not. But what it answers the same question that Parshas Bereshis answers. How did we come to where we are? Why are these people? Why the man and woman? What do you mean? Everyone wants to know this. What is Parshas Bereshis about? Why is there woman and why the woman never having it so hard? And that's what Parshas Bereshis, the question the Parshas Bereshis answers, right? Everyone cares about it. Some people say it's not true, so that's what I'm getting to. But you can't say that people, it's only the religious, it's what only the modern, sophisticated religious people that turn into the stupidest cats. We only care about what's in front of our eyes. That's a tip, that's not even a tippish. That's just a mashigana. It's like next level ego is narcissism. You only care about your own reflection. That was narcissist, right? What does it even mean? We only care about the God that reflects us. Well, it's not. Why wouldn't you care? Every normal person cares about the reality. Reality is much more stronger than you. It affects you. By the way, everything affects you. Everything since the Bang Bang affects you, according to science. It definitely affects you. Does it have a direct? Do you need to? Can I make money out of it today? There's nothing useful to know that can make money about today. In 100 years, yes, you could. Understanding these things gave us everything you see around there. Was brought to you by people interested in knowing. But now, and that's why I'm so against this idea. So now religion is about internal, being more internal. There's not, by the way, there's nothing inside. Everything inside comes from outside. Person is a mirror. I disagree with the whole idea of authenticity. There's nothing. If you go inside the person, there's nothing. There's just a mirror. One time I should make a short story. The guy that did this mitzvah of know yourself, and he found the deepest level of his soul, and he found a mirror, and it was reflecting everything from the outside. That's what a good soul should be about. You should be about conforming to reality, but representing maybe not the correct word, but being masik. That's the language asog. It means achieving, having reality within you, having God within you. Right? That's what it means. Why would I care only about? Why wouldn't I care about the El Misalyana? That's what's the only interesting thing. Why would I care about me? Me is the most stupid, boring thing to ever happen. In a few weeks, it's gonna turn into dust, literally. Nachmal, the neshama is just the part that reflects God. Whatever, in a few weeks, and then relative to evolution, relative to how long there were, it's a few weeks. Not even a blink, yeah. Not even like the Medrash says, look, it's about like the shadow of a bird makes when it flies, I love it, right there, it's not Pete. Yeah, what do you mean? But the world is much more interesting than me, than myself. Things outside are much more interesting than things inside. Now, the interesting thing about the inside is that it has this amazing capacity that human beings have to actually reflect the outside, to reflect objective reality. That's the whole chokhmah. It's crazy because nobody else can do it. Maybe Malachim can do it. I don't know. Maybe God can do it.
You need a course.
So have coffee maker. You could not
get fun.
No.
You need a coffee. I'm supposed to tell you now. No, but being real with yourself. Literally saying,
nobody disagrees. Exactly. Nobody disagrees. This is, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Nobody disagrees that immediate needs are, this is the din of Kich Nefesh B'Chei Shabbos. Right? Immediate needs are always going to come before everything else. This only starts,
But let's have a need right now. You start telling me something which is not.
Even somebody's toothache, but it's not made.
This is very sad. Oh, I don't know. I understand. No, beside the body, he cultivates a certain disinterest in metaphysics, a certain disinterest in physics, a certain disinterest in anything besides for yourself. That's what happens in the end. I know these people. That's what happens with the sophisticated religious people. They say science is about the outside world. Who cares? But this really happened. Let's get back to my shadow. This really happened because we fell out of sync. Because the religion fell out of sync with reality, and we couldn't run fast enough. The Rambam did this major work, and people like him, even though Kabbalah did this huge amount of work to make it sync back with reality. Right? Let's retranslate the whole Torah until it matches up reality as we know it. Right? That's what they did. And then we kind of got bored of doing that for whatever reason, or it got tired, or too hard, or nobody was smart enough. So we decided,
A lot of people come from the people that never started doing it in the first place.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Let's not get into this. I'm not sure. I don't think it's true. But that's a different tack. Now, therefore, we said, let's chicken reality lifted, and reality should go on vacation. Religion was never about reality. It was about all kinds of fancy words that mean basically what I feel and not what the reality is. And therefore,
what's the meaning of reality?
Meaning, all these fancy words. That's another meaning. It's just a fancy word to say not reality. Because a meaning has to exist outside of you for it to be real meaning. Very important. Meaning is not feelings. Feelings are just a misrepresentation of reality. What's not a feeling? Ich the Stoic theory of feelings. Feeling is just when you don't understand the reality, right? I feel that you're broigus at me, on me. Right? Are you broigus or are you not broigus? That's the thing that we can objectively find out. Something I feel. It feels. But feeling is just a questionable representation of reality. If you would have a proof, that's better than a feeling. I feel that God exists. Okay, so I meant, in other words, it's a very schwache representation. It's a very schwache cognition, is what feelings. Actually, modern neuroscience doesn't believe this. There's no such thing as feelings. Feelings don't exist. There's only different in my view, there's only different judgment. That's what the Stoics said. There's different levels of representation of reality. I feel love. Love is just a real thing. I mean, it has different meanings. It's not something that starts and ends within me. There's no privileged access to yourself. That's, by the way, people. Okay, because if you don't know what's inside you better than anyone else. Happens to be. Feelings are just interesting, and they're very weak. They're like fuzzy pictures of reality. Sometimes we don't have anything besides for that, so we say, okay, I have a feeling. But they're not. They're only interesting if they represent the reality. And what's interesting is the reality, not meaning is just another thing that has to exist outside of you, not inside of you. So therefore, let me give the nafkamina in the simple nafkamina. Nafkamina is like this. There's two theories of prayer. One is that it's a thing that has something to do with reality at some level, not always. Maybe it's fuzzy. Maybe we don't actually know the mechanism. You know, the Mekabulim. We're very interested in figuring out the mechanism of prayer, right? They tell you, Lama this is like the Yisod of Kabbalah, and I love it. Lama Yisrael Shoelim v'ayim nen, masha'ayim yiradim l'spal b'Shem. What does it mean? Prayer is not magic. That's their theory, at least. Not like there's no like puppet in the sky that you can just play please and you have to know which button to press. Prayer is just a very fancy way of pressing certain buttons. And since for a long time we don't know which buttons to press, that's why they're not working. If they work like a therefore, the answer is going to be to find out what those buttons are and how to press them correctly. This seems to be a big mekibble, but it's technically a science. It's not to be a big tzaddik. The Mekubbalim are very clear about their theory is not a theory of tzidkis, not a theory of morality. It's another thing that we should be against. The Ramchal and people that think that Kabbalah is a theory of morality. It's a theory of being good. You know, it's nothing to do with being a good person. It could be a big rush and a big mekibble. One of the big things of Kabbalah is that Pari was a mekibble and Haman was a mekibble and all these things. Right? They were bad people, but there's nothing to do with it. Okay, it's just not. Maybe not the Ramchal. I don't know. The Ramchal is different because there's many people like say that Kabbalah is wegen Avodat Hashem. No, Kabbalah is not about Avodat Hashem. Kabbalah is about science, but understanding the reality. Avodat Hashem in this way always means like something. So therefore, you could have. I don't know. I'm saying I start too many things and I don't finish them. So we have to go back to the original thing. The original thing was that Kabbalah is not about. It's not about. Let's say something like this. Kabbalah is not about how to become the kind of person that God loves and therefore is going to help you. It's about understanding the mechanism of how God works and using it correctly. Being a tzaddik and a rusha is another whole question. You could be a big rusha and be a real mekibble and your Kabbalah will work. Conforming to God's will in the traditional way, like being a tzaddik, is not what Kabbalah is about. It's about how the mechanism of how God right? How God's emanation or whatever works. And that's why they're very open about this working for the Shuim too. The Yesod of Kabbalah is that it works for the Shuim. Of course, there's still the Shuim, and then they call it Setra Achre. Maybe there's all kinds of different explanations for what this exactly means and how it works. That's one of like big controversies. But it has to work. Just like science could work. I'm going to go back to a bunch of different things. In other words, but this is just one theory, right? You can have other theories of prayer. Maybe there's a basic, the old-fashioned theory, which doesn't have to do with tzaddik. God likes tzaddik, and maybe God, there's another theory of prayer, which is that God likes aniyim. Actually, not only tzaddikim, right? God has midas rachmami. There's some way to force God. If you read some very beautiful book by this guy, explains that. I forgot his name, Lambert, and how Tefillah Tanis is really about showing God how nebuchtik we are, and God, like literally, it's like a button you could press because He's a Baal Rachmem. You show Him if you present yourself as a Azura man. He has to help you, even if you're not worthy. Right. And so on. Right. We present ourselves as very poor, and that's a button that that's not a button. This is not a mechanical theory. This is like more a personal theory, but it's still a theory of it connects to God. We have some kind of, it's called theory of mind. We have some kind of understanding of how God relates to us. Maybe we'll say it's a midah, it's whatever, it's a malach. Here is the theology of it, right? It's mifshit, it's not mifshit. In some sense, we understand how it works. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the tefillahs are nana, sometimes they're not nana, and so on, right? And if they're nana, we're happy, and we have a whole shalin and sechtas tanas. What do we do if in the middle of the tanas it starts raining, right? We stop davening. Basically, we stop, but there's technically a reason because we're makabel tanas, so we have to finish the tanas, right? But we make a simcha, right? This never happened in the last 500 years, this kind of story. We never had an understanding that we prayed for something and it worked. The tefillah was nana, and now we stopped the tanis.
What do we never had it?
Because we most of the time daven for lost causes. Because we forgot that tefillah is supposed to connect to reality. Maybe if you have basic tefillah, nothing, we don't have it. And these kind of, someone looks at you like an apikoidis for saying, look, this is a lost cause, don't daven for it. That means that his theory of tefillah is disconnected from reality. Tim tefillah was never about actually changing. He doesn't say it in this many words because he's in denial. But that's basically what he's saying. I'll tell you, look, this guy is 90 years old. He has 3 chronic illnesses. He barely functions. He doesn't know your name. Maybe we should stop davening for him to live. Yeah, could God make miracles? He could. But like the tachlis, everything could. Should we continue to buy lotteries? Yeah, you could, but it's not worth it. It's not going to get the investment. We daven for other things. You have a limited amount of time to daven or whatever. Daven for other. If we have unlimited, then yeah. But everything in the world is limited. There is always choices to make. Why are you daven? If you tell this to people, they look at you most of the time like, I don't know what kind of blog you read. It's the opposite. It's I'm the ma'aman and he's the apikoidis. Because his theory of tefillah is disconnected from anything. He doesn't even expect it to actually work. How many percentage do you give for this tefillahs to work? These frantic tefillahs, right? This lady. We had frantic, a bunch. By the way, not getting to the details of every story. You're going to say, yeah, Masi did get. Was that chilik? The idea is you have to have a theory for how it's going to work, or why, and maybe we should figure out why sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and so on. We have to do tshiva. Okay, did anyone ever seriously consider doing tshiva? I don't think so. I don't think we believe in it at all. I'm not saying everyone, of course there's everything, but for the most part, I don't think anyone ever considers change in the most simple sense. Not even on the table. And for very basic human nature reasons. But yeah, but like, could you understand? Maybe the way you're doing it is not correct. It's always everything became like very spiritualized. Okay, well, I don't know what, everything is so totally disconnected from the reality.
Oh,
you could. What? I wanted to finish about something about, I forgot what I wanted to talk about. Oh, the Bismedrash. So this is about the Bismedrash. So the teretz for the kasha, now there was a big kasha, this has connected to this. The big kasha, wie sie kann sagen, the shield, das land the plant was a magda magaifer, right? And it's also in the Gemara. But it's also in the reality, and I think that it actually bothers people. How could it be that they tell me that all the mitzvahs are the ones that cause the death, right? Basically. Because when everything they eat and do is mitzvahs, so that's kind of cheap. It's not really fair. But let's say.
What do you mean?
Yeah, the Gemara is just an example of this question, but it's still a real question. Without the Gemara, it would be a real question. I think it's one of the things that bothers people very much. Even if they don't say it in so many words, sometimes they do. Guys, Keinen grocery harget efsche Menschen. Keine bis Medisch sicher harget Menschen. It sounds like you just hate Yiddishkeit. It sounds like God hates Yiddishkeit, right? Forget about you, because again, go back to the reality. The reality is that all the things that we think are mitzvahs, they're the things that make people die of magaifas. I mean, to bis Medisch, going to the mikveh, whatever.
Don't do these things.
I'm not saying don't do, but they're mitzvahs, right? They're the good things. They go in Gainish bis Medisch, and they're not dying. But even Gainish mentioned that they are dying. It's very it's opposite of what we expect Chayv and so on, right? And what's the teretz? The teretz is that you again have a very weird theory of Medrash. Medrash is a very powerful thing. It actually does something. If Uraya does something, you could actually die from it. It's actually a good place for the Malach HaMobas to hang out. You think that everything is spiritual, everything is disconnected from anything, then Mitzvah must help. We have to say that it helps. We don't really believe that it helps, right? We're just saying. But obviously it doesn't help. Obviously people do die. But I'm saying something much better. I'm saying that it's about the reality. I think that you should expect mitzvahs to be the most dangerous thing.
It's the real.
Because they're real, because they actually do something.
Because
it does something. Oh, you want to know why sometimes? No, you want to know why sometimes? Not the only place, but you can say you want to know why sometimes it works opposite. So we have the loy zuchel and nas lesamovas, all kind of things like that. There's the teretz why. Why when it works? Does electricity work? Is electricity an amazing thing? Yeah, is it also a very deadly thing? Everything that's very deadly, powerful is also very deadly. The Uren killed people. Why? Because it's Kaddish. There's all kinds of explanations. You could find the teretz of what we did wrong. What's the right way and the wrong way to do it? That's the question. But we just basically don't believe that it's really powerful. That's what we don't. We wonder.
That's what the saying. He's saying the Kim when the Dow. He says
that what? Who?
Who says? Comes to the Chaloinus. There has to be Piskin Chaloinus. These the Knesset.
No.
He said these Chaloinus is the Kim.
Who says? That's already a medrash, though.
That's like some kind of din. It could be shayre there.
It makes sense for him to say such things. But it's true. Everything that do is powerful. If it's real thing, then that's actually true in the reality. That actually matches with the reality. You don't have to have Kabbalah for this. In other words, let's say we could say it in a very scientific level, putting people together makes them share microbes. Sometimes those are bad microbes. Not as simple as that. That's the reality. That's actually what happens. Not even an assault. But we don't really believe that we share. We don't believe that has to do. That's how you know it. It's actually like a physical thing. You go together with, maybe some study will come out that we hang out with people, you get like their bacteria. There's a lot of recent research about this and so on. And they'll tell you, they thought that no, it has to do. Of course, it's supposed to have to do. You don't even expect. We're so crazy that we don't even expect anything to work. And therefore, when it works, we get the opposite theory.
This is the thing. This is like
what is teva? Just another way of saying things that work. No, that's why I'm against this Ramban. I already explained to you because the Ramban is stuck because he has the Ramban in the Ramban's world. It makes sense because his teva has a certain definition, but to us teva just means things that work. What is teva? Nobody knows what teva is. Teva is just things that work. Just another way of saying things that work. Things that work predictably, maybe we could say. Things that work reliably, not only work once. That's just what teva means. The second, this whole anti-teva ends up being anti-reality. That's why it's so important to have teva. Even the Ramban has teva. He just has another Ramban called Shem HaFire, which could break it. He doesn't disagree that it exists. But that, and of course, no, that's okay. That gets into. I'm not getting to this. In the Ramban's boy world again. No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay, but no, it's not. Of course not. No. If it works, then it's not. Either it doesn't work or it works. That's what it doesn't work. It makes no sense to have a category for things that don't work. If it works only sometimes, okay, so maybe it works sometimes. You have to have a theory of how it works. And that's like I said, the Mekbulim disagree with this Ramban. Depending on your theory of tefillah. We have to have a theory for why some tefillahs work and some does not work. Or we could just say that we don't know how it works, but it has to work. It can't be totally disconnected from reality. No, I know. It's
like the weirdest thing.
There's two big problems with Ramban. One is that.
I can't say the world is
By the way, let's. Right.
The shafer and it comes down.
It means it's only eat chaylev. You don't mean you should die.
It is the reason. What do you mean? He's more alle koiches.
That's not good, Teva.
Yeah, why?
Why not? Why not? Teva just another way of saying. That's what I'm saying. In the Ramban's, no, possibly. Wait. But possibly. Right, but it's possible. No.
The concept of Teva.
No, it's possible. I'm not sure. It's possible that the Ramban agrees to that. And what he calls Lamal Medech Teva still has laws. And therefore, but that's only because the Ramban has a certain specific concept of Teva. What we call, everything that I call Teva is like that. It works and it works predictably. That's all Teva means. But secondly, the Ramban actually says that it doesn't work usually. Again, the Ramban actually has a theory that conforms to reality. The Ramban's theory is that nowadays, for most people, you have to go to the doctor, otherwise you will die. But Derech HaTeva, not because sometimes Derech HaTeva doesn't work, because it always works. Sometimes it's a ness. Then he wants us to believe that when Mashiach will come and whenever there will be only Nisim. But meanwhile, the Ramban is in a very stuck place, but that has to do with the Ramban's whole problem. The Ramban is in a very bad place, because according to him, there's no Torah nowadays. That's why the Ramban really doesn't like Gulas, unlike the Rambam. The Ramban, the Torah is basically not working. The whole Torah is based on this supernatural kind of will of God. Yeah, for example, this idea still matches with this and so on. Therefore, nowadays that we have to go to the Dach, Torah is just not working. There is a Torah for this time also, like like Shayin Darkam Shel Bnei Yehuda Melech and Hagi, all of these things. But that's not the Torah. What people don't realize that the Ramban says Ein du dem Chalik B'Toras Moshe, but it's really saying Ein du nicht Chalik B'Toras Moshe, because we don't live in that world.
That's why it the Ramban should be Iker, even though most of the time it doesn't work like that, because it should work like that.
Oh, but that's why the Rambam is a better theory. That's why I think that the Rambam is a better theory, because his theory conforms to our reality. But in any case, the Ramban is not anti-reality. It doesn't matter. He honestly believes that there's such a reality. Whether it's by God's arbitrary will, like interventionist will, whether it's by Kabbalistic laws, whichever level.
What do most people believe?
I think that they basically believe that Minna is anti-reality. That's basically as much as I can tell. Never gonna tell you that. What does Teva Menagush Shloim mean?
They misunderstand it.
I'm not saying, yeah, but they don't. They misunderstand the cheshbon. They misunderstand the cheshbon of the sigya. What does that mean?
They don't live in Teva. They go to a doctor. You go to a doctor.
They're
trying to get out of the Teva, and because they see
I think
the
that
whole point of a Teva, which is get to the reality, but they know it's not.
I think that at the end of the day, most people think that the idea of a minna is not reality. It's the sophisticated ones say that it's internal, it's about meaning and things, and the less sophisticated ones just say things that make no sense. But most of them, that it's nothing to do with reality. Reality is one din, and a minna is another din, and it can exist either in your mind, or we could pretend and so on. We could live in denial. That's what I think everyone thinks. That's the vibe that I get from everything.
It's not a reality? That's what you're saying? You think a mood is not a reality?
Yeah. It's against reality. If I kid, they think reality is fake. If that's a nicer way of saying it. What do you go to a regular Shina Chovos HaLevos? The Chovos HaLevos might actually say something like this, but he actually has a theory for it. You go to regular Shina Shar B'toch, and they'll say, look, it looks like you went to work and got money, but Lamasa, it's not true. But basically don't believe in causality, right? But you're like one of these sodas of sanity. The Best Levi says this. He literally says this. Causality doesn't really exist.
What?
Causality doesn't really exist. That's just against reality. Yeah, you could ask David Hume if we know about causality. Maybe it's only it really exists. Okay, it's one of the very important ways reality works. Does it always?
And the decision thing also is the causality.
It's some kind. At some level, there's God. Right, that's what my theory is. Or at some level, this is part of it. Forget. I don't have a problem. So I don't have a problem. I'm very happy with a religion that's just about real things. I don't think. Why are people mad when you say? Let's say I tell you, eating chametz. Okay, that's a very bad example. Eating chazer actually causes some machla, and that's why the Torah asked it. This is like a theory of the Rambam, by the way. And most people nowadays are very unhappy with this. Why are they unhappy with this? Because I was like coming on to the doctor. Okay, the doctor weiß, the shouldn't weiß nicht. There's a part of reality that not everyone knows about, but the Torah knew about, and therefore asked it. Why is this a bad idea? Why do people think this is not a religious idea? Because their idea of religion is something that has nothing to do with reality. Imagine it to be true. Forget about if it's true or not true. Imagine this is true. There's danger. Let's say it's a small danger, so Goyim don't know about it, whatever. Obviously, it's not an obvious danger, right? Because then they would know. So it's not as obvious, but it's at some level of causality, of basic nature causality.
Wouldn't be a mitzvah.
Why not? Why not? What's wrong with mitzvahs just being the good things to do? What's wrong with that?
Nothing is wrong with
Why
that.
did it have to be magic?
Ramban and Kabbalah. No, the Ramban and Kabbalah don't say it's not.
No, they don't say that. They say the opposite. Just the opposite.
It's a different level that they're doing that.
What's the difference in levels? Levels. See, you see, this levels is misunderstood. Levels are things that exist in the real world. Who cares? You could actually see a malach according to the Ramban. Then if you can't see it, who cares? You can't see the gravity either. Doesn't matter. Actually, things that exist, things that theoretically are discoverable by science, or maybe they're only discovered by revelation. Doesn't matter how they're discoverable. They actually exist. This whole thing is
no.
Maybe it does. Why not? What's wrong with that idea? Why is it a bad idea? It's not true. You tell me. One second. You tell me that it's not true. With reality, who cares about levels? What does it mean? What is levels even interesting? Everyone agrees. The biggest Apikoris agrees that reality is built of levels. Okay, there's this macro level things. There's micro level. There's super micro level. There's atomic level. Levels are not even interesting. When you say levels, what you mean to say reality and not reality. When we say Rochnis and Gashis, what's Rochnis supposed to mean? What meant Rochnis? Things that we can't see? Okay, what's nothing interesting about? What does it mean dimensions? What's minded? It still exists. Why is that interesting? By the way, why is that dimension more interesting? Forget about mitzvahs makkah. No, I want to talk about the dimensions. No, I mean Shrine. Ich würde denken, the dimensions are lines.
You should do it.
Nine, you see? Morality is a dimension.
No, it's not the same.
I don't see why there's a problem. No, I don't see why being in a different dimension makes it any different. I think that this is only makes sense if it doesn't exist.
People, like say Micah.
No, why? By the way, most people, when pushed to the wall. One second. The briskers, when pushed to the wall, they tell you that Lo Sirtzach is not about not killing people.
They would say don't eat
no. One second. The Taka says that, and then it gives the specifics. But there you're arguing on details. I don't think that there's. I don't understand why it helps you to have a different level. Different level still has to be either it's real or it's fake, or either exists in the reality, in the external world, or it does not exist in the external world, and therefore it doesn't exist.
Everyone agrees that this bad, unhealthy thing has
what does it mean, the Ruchni is the Gewalt, when you say that?
It means things that are not tested in a laboratory.
But could they be tested? They must be able to be tested in some laboratory. I don't know which laboratory. Maybe you don't have.
Yeah, they tested by the Rebbe, I tell you.
Okay.
So then it doesn't matter, but let's say that would be true. That's reality. There's nothing interesting about that. There's nothing better about that level than about any other level. The only difference is it might be less obvious, but there's also things in this reality that are less obvious. Nobody knew about the laws of gravity until Newton came, and nobody knew about quantum things because whatever Michigan came. There's nothing special about things not being testable. We need to have the right kailim. For instance, you need to have a microscope to be able to see a bacteria. You need an electron microscope to be able to see a virus. You can't see it even with a microscope. Well, that's literally another level of reality. In other words, it's not measurable by the tools they had 400 years ago. It literally was not measurable, and now it is. It has a real effect on reality. Tevin is not interesting. No, not at all. It's not special. I know, because people's feeling is that it's not reality. Their feeling is that I'm pretty sure that's their feeling, that it's extra reality. There's no. How can you frego?
A lot of people think that it has to do with morals.
That's the modern people. That's the modern people. That's not the primitive people. That's the modern people. Because morals also have to come from some reality. There's also things as reality. No.
All Yidden that have shakti Kabbalah or something. Look at Yiddishkeit. Like,
I know, but they're confused. They're confused. They don't know what. I don't even know what hechah means. Why is it hechah? I told you, Haman was the mekibbel. They don't get it. Haman was the big mekibbel. He had a theory about the Nasir and everything. And so why is it interesting? It's just a part of reality. It might be unknowable to laboratories. It's knowable to the mind.
He said at times he doesn't understand when someone says that what's Allah Ilamas? What's Allah Ilamas?
No.
The TV Hashem's and the image said,
No, but that's the loika Kabbalah. I don't know if that's true. I thought he was saying about something else. That's because he wants. That's what I'm telling you. If you push a brisket to the wall, generally they'll tell you that Leisertzach is also not about not killing, and that leads to them being murderers. That's what the brisket group said. That only L'Shem Shemaim. That's how we know Pnina is L'Shem Shemaim, right? No L'Shem Shemaim Tipna Zacharishes.
That doesn't stimmen with the brisket.
No. No.
That's just
Originally, they were also mentioned. Then you have only the Mahalach.
I heard it damals zu rotten, der versteht nicht.
They have to be mentioned. You know they are mentioned.
Ja, das ist ganz stieren. Das ist echt ein Pekars. Das ist No, what are you saying? That's the Nefesh HaBahamis.
Whatever, yeah. They're human.
They were showing you when it's like the have a lot of need to go visit. You know, like from the other way, I don't think it's such like he's like a job is a bit of him for Kenny.
Oh yeah,
he was a pleasant company, like he like pleasant company. What?
He claimed that he had to do dry calls.
It
seems right, it was very good because he was got, it was nice, everybody got over.
It's Kenzan, but Kitzer, I don't know what it helps to say a different reality. That and you could say it's not testable, so I have to believe you. Okay. Maybe that's another question. How do we know about every level of reality? Besides, we could figure out. There maybe bring it out. There has to be some way to know. Otherwise, there has to be some way to talk about it coherently. Because otherwise, like, what are we doing? Man, there has to be some way. Man, theoretically, Rabbi Luria could come and say that Rabbi Cordovero was wrong. So there's a way to find out who is right and who is wrong, right? Not totally closed. Maybe we have to do fast 100,000 tanais. There's a way. There's some way. Theoretically, there's some way.
What's the problem with it? Let's say someone thinks it's not reality.
Then it just doesn't exist. There's no things that are not reality that exist. Reality is just another way of saying things that exist.
You're calling it non-reality. They're calling it extra reality.
I know, because what it means is the nafkamina is that then he doesn't have to have any. He never gets slugged up from anything. That's the nafkamina. Nafkamina is that to me you have to figure out a theory. What the reality is. No, so tell me. So how do it? You have to figure out. That might be true, but what's it got to do with anything? Your theory was actually that it works in this world. You see, that doesn't help. But it does. That's not what they think. They think that it works in this world, just not in the reality. That doesn't make any sense. Of course, it doesn't make any sense. That's the they mentioned they don't never update their theory based on any information. The theory was actually that it works in this world, right? They say, but the amina is lamal minatev, and therefore, and it doesn't work. We don't get nispol. This doesn't make any sense. What is it even saying? Was the amina that it doesn't work in this world? Then have no problem. If your amina lechatchila was, he's going to be in Sheman, then you're davening the wrong thing. You should say yirutz and sheh.
If it doesn't work, then it should work, and if it doesn't work, you have to.
If you have a totally unfalsifiable theory that it doesn't work, it works in a different world. By the way, the different world is not unfalsifiable. It has to be at least internally coherent. You have to figure something out about it. Man, you can't just say whatever you want. The main thing is it has to exist outside of your mind, outside of your soul. You don't have to use the word mind. It has to exist outside of your neshama. In other words, there has to be a way for your neshama to update its mirroring, its representation of it by new information, by better information, and so on.
Mirroring you think no reality outside?
No, there's only reality outside. Reality means what exists outside. You also exist. Also you.
The Torah is what?
Yeah, basically. Again, then the unsophisticated people have no theory that makes any sense. They're just living in the millionaires. The sophisticated people, he doesn't think. He thinks that the mina and reality don't never meet. He doesn't even have a concept of reality. I tried to explain this. The concept of reality is a very deep concept. No, that everyone has it. Children don't, there's some psychological work that children only get when they're like 6. I think some people, they just... No, different object permanence, whatever. There's different levels, like object permanence, different things. The idea that, children have this thing when they... What do you mean? All the children, when they hide, they do this? Make your children do that? Hide and seek. What is this? This is a very serious problem. Right? Because he doesn't... No, he literally plays hide and seek and goes like that. Children do this until they're like 5, 6. What do you mean? And the reason is, and according to Nachum, nobody remembers when they were, the idea is that they don't have, that the way reality looks to them is not the way it looks outside of them, right? Being able to take a third-person objective perspective is a huge chiddush. You need to live in this world for 6 years until you figure it out. I don't know, I'm making up numbers now. There's this guy, Fija. There's different theories about this. It's a very serious thing. I think some people, they don't have this shtickle. They really think that imagining things changes something. That's literally this is like against the most yesod of reality is that you thinking doesn't change anything. Maybe, you know, maybe it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. It could be that there's some way by which thinking can affect in the world things. That's not okay. Of course it does in some ways. But in the basic sense it doesn't, right? You're thinking I don't know what it is. I know that it's against reality. It doesn't work. It never works. It works.
Why should it work? Well, it was nothing. Of course not.
But why do people say that? I'm sure it could be interpreted in a way that makes sense. I agree. I'm sure that it can be interpreted in a rational, normal way. I'm not saying that it's not a good advice sometimes and it means something. But I'm trying to get at a very deep thing that in a certain sense, this person, that, you know, let's update the theory. Maybe we didn't understand it correctly. Like this lady, think, well, this fregs the Chassidus. At least she said God didn't keep his part of the deal, right? That's what she says. God didn't keep his part. Well, maybe he did, then this wasn't the deal. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to update every time, but there should be some mechanism for updating. Maybe sometimes we say, you know what, we don't understand this prat, but it's still true, the theory in general. That's not crazy. But there has to be some level where we say, you know what, this is not how it works. Maybe there's other ways in which it works, but this is not a way that this doesn't work. And it doesn't, even in principle, that's what when people talk about a min and teva, but the vibe that I get, that even in principle, there's no way to convince you that you're wrong. In principle, not Lamas, I'm right. Okay, Lamas, you're right. There's no way the reality could prove itself to you. If God himself would come and tell you, he has no way. What should God do to disprove this theory? Tell me an idea. What should he do? What can he do? There's nothing he can do.
This guy had this.
That's why it's up a concept.
Someone could die, and he's saying he's very upset that God didn't tell the truth.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the theory that he shouldn't have died, right? He's not talking about the theory, right? The guy died and he didn't change his theory, right? Mashiach didn't come and he didn't change the idea that the Rebbe is Mashiach. This is a very good example. Doesn't matter what the excuse is. So he didn't die. So he did. No, but it comes out of the same idea where reality doesn't have to. This is the shlidish. The shlidish is that we don't have to conform to reality. I mean, it's going above reality. Now, I'm not saying that as a statement. It's a very useful statement because reality gets what we think of reality is usually not the reality. Again, if you say, you know, you only see very small part of reality, that's one thing. But you know, at least in principle, it's only about the reality. And that's what I'm saying. The plain people don't just say things don't make sense. Actually, sophisticated people is who we should argue with. Because they're the ones like that keep on explaining us that there's values that are not really reality, all kinds of things like that. That's the really people I'm arguing with. Other people should sense it, and if you press them, I don't know what they say. The people that actually have a theory like religion where it's only about what we feel, that's very stupid to me. And at the end of the day, you're saying it's subjective, and therefore maybe it's true, but then we're stuck with the apicard. Okay. You don't understand the kasha. Okay.